before we get going, I want to thank both David and Andrew for doing this. It's probably a unique opportunity here where we've got an opportunity where we can see both sides of a transaction, where you've got that entrepreneur that Brent was describing previously. That's Dave in a nutshell, and Dave, sold a business that he created from nothing and sold it to a multinational company. Select Solutions is a division of SPA AusNet, or Singapore Power, which is a very large corporate business. So I'm excited about this discussion. But what we'll do is I'll get Dave to kick it off and just sort of, Dave, if you want to give everyone a little bit of a background of where you started in business.
Well, I went to a tech school, always wanted to be a plumber. So I started my plumbing apprenticeship and finished that in around the mid-80s. After I finished my apprenticeship, I started my own plumbing business called Schultz Plumbing. The first 6 years, I didn't really have sort of any aspirations. To be honest, I spent most of my time having long lunches down at the Brandon Hotel in Carlton. But, it's sort of, we were doing sort of maintenance plumbing. I ended up having, putting on one apprentice. Most of my work come through an uncle of mine that had a building company. It wasn't until about 1996 where I got involved with a company called Serco, who are a multinational company, quite big, and they'd won a contract with Yarra Valley Water to replace 350,000 water metres. So they were looking for contractors. So Schultz Plumbing started contracting to Serco, and we went from having one apprentice to probably about 15 employees. Most of them weren't plumbers. You didn't have to be a plumber to change water meters. So I had, brings back memories, I had kids flying around in convertible Capris. Capri, I don't know if anyone remembers them, had a trailer on the back and just running from house to house changing water meters. So, and half of these kids were, straight out of school, or, my brother-in-law's mates, or my brother's mates, or whatever. But it was good learning experience. As I said, we grew to about 15 employees, and one of the people at Yarra Valley Water that was managing that contract he took note of the way I operated it, and he actually liked the Schultz Plumbing model, the way, we had all of our employees in uniforms and all the rest of it. So he approached me to tender for a massive contract at Yarra Valley Water. At the time, it was the maintenance of their water meter fleet. They had about 700,000 water meters at the time, and Schultz Plumbing, I don't think we had an office then. We may have had shared an office somewhere or something. They had no systems really in place. It was quite a daunting time. So we ended up tendering for it. So we got a consultant. We put in a tender, and we happened to win it. And it was worth about $300,000 or $400,000 a year or something like that. So that, we had to expand really quickly. So, we quickly got an office together, working with Sam, put a few, an office girl in place.
Set up a company?
Set up a company that was Schultz Holdings. And virtually that was the start of, of the business. Still didn't have any real aspirations to grow a big business or anything like that. So over the next sort of 5 years, we started winning these meter replacement contracts all over the state. Country Water Authorities, Bendigo, Ballarat. We even started going to Griffith in New South Wales, and it become quite a lucrative sort of business. So by the time 2005, 2006 come around, we were turning over about $9 million. Probably had about 80 employees or something like that, and the business got a bit stagnant at that stage. So it was about then we had an offer from a company to buy us out. I'll go into that a little bit later. We ended up knocking the offer back, but it was a real sort of wake-up call as to, hey, what's the business worth if we've only got, one or two contracts or three contracts? So we said, why don't we scale it up and set it up for sale? So in 2007, we virtually split the business into two. We called one part of the business Schultz Plumbing, which was going to concentrate on general maintenance plumbing. and we had a big contract with Yarra Valley Water where we were their referral plumbing contractor. And in the new part of the business was Schultz Holdings, which was all of our water company contracts, right? So it was with Yarra Valley Water. I think we had a contract with City West Water, Collarbon Water, and the common objective with both of these sides of the business was, one, to diversify away from just changing water meters, hence the plumbing side of the business, but two was to make them the most successful businesses of their type in our geographic area, right? So by 2007, the business would established a 13-year relationship with Yarra Valley Water, and you know, by 2010 we were a $20 million business, and we had 130 employees, and that's when we ended up doing the deal to sell the business. So.
No, thanks for that, Dave. Now, I remember in the early days, mate, especially when you're turning over about that $8 or $9 million, things were pretty comfortable. Probably, I think one year we went through the numbers and we figured you probably got stuck there for about 4 or 5, you know, I think it was about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, about 3 years, yeah.
So do you want to describe a little bit of that time?
Yeah, virtually it was like Sam was saying before, we got comfortable. You know, we got to a certain stage and we'd won all of the metering contracts there were, so we weren't really looking at growth and new revenue streams. You know, I had other interests. I'd started getting into breeding and racing thoroughbreds. I'd built a house in Lower Plenty. You know, started investing in property. So it wasn't all about Schultz Plumbing. There was other interests in my life. So you know, and that's when a company called USC came along and offered to buy the business. So it was either, you know, making $1 million a year, life's pretty comfortable. We sell the business for $3 million. That was the offer. That didn't make a great deal of sense. Or we spend the next 3 or 4 years building it up and sell it for much more. So virtually, you know, that's when you know, we refocused and really went after, you know, the growth. Yeah.
So it was a bit exciting. I remember when the USC first approach came in, we were a bit excited about it.
Yeah, it was out of the blue.
Yeah.
You know, we obviously weren't expecting it. At that stage, we weren't set up for sale. I don't even know why they offered to buy us, really. I think at the end of the day, when we look back, we think they were only trying to buy the Yarra Valley Water contract. Yeah. So it really didn't matter about too many systems and that, because they were just going to bolt that on to water contracts they already had in the industry. So, you know, it definitely got us thinking at the time. Yeah.
Fantastic, mate. And so, what was some of the transformation, you know, that Schultz Plumbing went through, sort of as a result of that? You sort of think you had a bit of a different goal. You sort of said, well, if someone's going to offer me whatever $3 million for a business, and you know, we weren't even going to be set up for it, you know, that's not a big enough number for me. But you started to think a little bit about what kind of number and what kind of business did you have to have to produce that number.
Yeah, so virtually in 2006, after that offer, I hired a business consultant who's here today, Mel up the back there. Might put your hand up, Mel, so people know who you are, and you can ask Mel some questions later. But so we started working on our 5-year strategic plan, and we'd never sort of had that in the past. We'd always had a yearly business plan sort of thing, but never a 5-year plan. So virtually, you know, that was, in a nutshell, we wanted to grow by 20% every year. So we wanted to go from 9 million to 20 million in 5 years. So there was 2 key elements to the plan: the revenue growth, with obviously a focus on EBITDA and gross margin, and then there was to build the foundation and the operational capability to manage a $20 million business, which we didn't have. So we executed the strategic plan through yearly business plans with a systematic and a disciplined approach. Each financial year we broke it up into 90-day chunks, and we managed our deliverables as per them 90 days. So we made people very much accountable. At that stage, we established an advisory board, which we met every 90 days, and we made sure that we carried out everything we said in that 90 days. So we made everyone really accountable to what we're trying to achieve. The advisory board was made up of Sam, Mal, my commercial advisor, or whatever you want to call him. He was very important, and then we had a couple of people from our management team that was involved in that as well. So we virtually called that our 5-year business plan the Moving Forward program, right? Some of the main initiatives that we put in place was we radically improved our financial management capabilities. So we employed a CFO, which we never had one in the past. We sort of relied on Sam to do our monthly books. So, to get to where we wanted to get to, and if someone wanted to buy us, we knew that we need to have a CFO. I think that's very important. And even Sam, as our accountant, even though he was doing himself out of a lot of work, he pushed us that way to go out and find the right person. And that made a big difference. We upgraded our IT systems. A big part of our work is scheduling, so we built our own system called Schultz Scheduler, but we integrated that with other IT systems, and again, we knew that if someone was going to buy our company, our IT systems had to be improved dramatically. We defined our sandbox, so we worked out what areas that we're going to play in and what we weren't. So we didn't want to, when you're trying to grow so quick, it's easy to grow in the wrong areas. So we said, right, these are the areas we're going to work in, and we stuck to that, right? And that changed a little bit along the way, but generally we made sure we didn't work outside of that sandbox. We invested and launched a new brand. We called ourselves the Professionals Around the Corner, given the fact that we were targeting a small geographic area, well, Yarra Valley Water, which isn't that small, but we wanted to make sure that we had a catch cry that people knew. We documented all of our intellectual property, which we hadn't done in the past. That was a massive, that would have cost probably a couple of $100,000 alone, that was huge. We built a leadership team, second-tier leaders, and that had enabled me to concentrate more on growing the business. I was very much operationally involved. There wasn't a thing that happened there that I didn't know about. So Sam was big on making sure that, I stopped doing that, and I got people in that, could do all of them things that I used to do. HR, we Mel, as well as being the business consultant, had a lot of experience in HR at Telstra, so he took over a lot of that. We never used to conduct formal reviews for our staff, so we started doing all that. And REM reviews, I think they went 8 years without getting a REM review, but so we went to yearly REM reviews, all that sort of stuff. And the most important thing, we shared all this with our employees and made sure they knew what was, what we're trying to achieve and why we're doing all this stuff. So yeah, done quite a bit there.
You did a fair bit. I mean, at one stage I had to upgrade my stationery because my plumber's stationery was better than the accountant's stationery. But Dave's good at spending money on things, but that was good. Just want to probably introduce Andrew at this stage of the conversation. Andrew's. I'll get Andrew to briefly describe his role at the time when you sort of first met Schultz, first came in contact with Schultz Plumbing.
Yeah, sure. So I was the manager of what's called corporate development at SP AusNet, and that's a function that broadly takes care of strategy and corporate growth. So working on the SP AusNet business, and a big part of that's mergers and acquisitions, and I guess being the point person who goes out and sources the deal and then executes it if it's appropriate.
So probably if you want to describe a little bit about what that role is in a corporate business.
Yeah, it's very much aligning yourself with the business units that are looking to grow. So in SP AusNet's case, we had a young business called Select Solutions, which needed to acquire capability to make sure that it could, take the step forwards it needed to take. And I guess as part of that, the role of corporate development is to engage with people like Brent, although we didn't deal with him directly, and other corporate advisors that you might have a network of, and you'll tell them what areas you're looking to grow into. You'll also talk to your clients and speak to them about some of their better quality service providers. It's really just about identifying the businesses that you can acquire to grow.
Yeah. So did you sort of develop target lists initially? Is that how you sort of
Yeah,
went
we
about
did. Similar to what Brent talked about, we had an internal framework where we'd rank acquisitions against, and they were across various criteria that are important to our business. So we'd look at, we'd always look to buy a growing business. There were certain criteria we were looking for. So we were actually looking to acquire a business where we'd acquire the owner as well for a period. That was a very big part of it, because we were, we'd come out of SP AusNet's, they own power networks, and it's part of the old SEC and gas networks. It's very much a sort of a public service type mentality within that business, and the market where we were growing into was a very different and more dynamic market, and we were after someone who'd achieved what David had done and taken a small medium business and grown it quite quickly, and we were also looking to grab that skill set. So whilst we'd have a geographic KPI and a growth related KPI and a target market KPI, we'd also very much be looking for someone we could acquire. But I think importantly, when you're in a role, when you're in a corporate role, the first thing you looked at, and people have touched on it before, is why would we be a better owner for that business than the current owner is? So with everything, that's where we start.
Fantastic. So when you look at sort of the SME businesses, what do you look for? What makes them sort of stand out and attractive to you?
Yeah, and it's probably going over the same ground, but it very much is around the quality of data that you get. The biggest risk with a small business is key man risk. So people call it different things, but it's identifying what the owner does, what skills as a business you've got which you can replace that the owner does, and then what skills you don't have. So, and it's the skills that you don't have that then you look at the management team. So if there was a glaring weakness in the management team that the owner currently did, but as a corporate business that was a strength of yours, you could live with that. But it's more you identify the risks. Brent talked about it before. As a business, you'll identify business risks very quickly, and they really are around quality of data, the documentation of process, the key man risk, as well as the big thing for us was around contracted revenues as well. So, a business, especially as a developing business like Select was, contracts are the key. So, yeah.
What are some of the turn-offs? What that would stop a deal dead, or wouldn't get you to look at a business?
Dealing with a large, so it depends on who you're dealing with. Dealing with a corporate, we had certain things which we would not compromise as a business, and one thing that we wouldn't compromise on was safety. So we strongly valued safety as an electricity business, and it's extremely important. And I think Yarra Valley Water are similar, so there was good quality safety reporting, but safety is something that we'd back out of a deal for. And we'd looked at a large vegetation business with operations right across Australia, and we pulled out a week before settlement because we got the true understanding of their safety performance, and that was a non-negotiable. And I think a reason why we pulled out as well was part of the trust. So you need to operate in an environment where you professionally respect and trust the vendor, and you have certainty that the information you provided is true, because at the end of the day, we don't know the business as well as yourself, Sam, or David, or Brent, or other people as part of that team. So all we've got is information. So the big turn-off is poor quality information and poor structure.
Thanks for that, Andrew. Dave, probably just come back to you for a minute here. If you want to discuss just some of the key factors in getting your business ready for sale.
Yeah, I think one of the early things we did when we realised that was probably which way we were going to go is we attended a couple of seminars similar to this, but on a much bigger scale. And actually Sam attended with myself and Mal and a couple of key people within the business that we wanted to obviously let them know what the end goal was. And one of them was a bloke that's going around at the moment called Vern Harnish, and that was titled "What You Must Do to Increase the Value of Your Business." And some of the I've just got some main points here. What was in that presentation, but the first one was reinforce the value of a business plan and executing it well. The second one was focus on your sandbox, know what service you will provide and what you will not do. And the last one was put in place KPIs to assess the performance of your business at a range of levels. So we got enormous amount of information out of that about what we need to do in the next 5 years to get the business ready. The second one was Tom Maskiel, and that was selling your business at a premium. So the key points of that one was retain ownership of the sale process, do not delegate. Prepare your business for sale, then you can choose the time frame. Need to consider the benefits to the buyer, how it fits within their business and its scalability. Create a ready-to-go state for the potential buyer. Have your box of business documented, blah, blah, blah. So you've heard a lot of that today, but they're all very important points. The second thing we did was obviously started getting serious with our commercial advisor. I actually had this bloke recommended to me by my Westpac banking manager at the time, Chris Pousty. And at the end of the day, I wouldn't have got nowhere near the result I got without this bloke. And he's only very similar to what you do, but much smaller basis, but still well respected in the industry. So having a commercial advisor that knows his stuff and can advise you along the way, because you don't want to be talking to him when you're ready to sell. You have to be talking to him 2 or 3 years prior. So you've got to start using, they're $400 an hour, right? I don't know what yous are, but he's $400 an hour. So you've got to spend a lot of money in order to get the result at the end of the day. So that was very important. And then virtually, again, the 5-year plan. So in 2008, we were 2 years into our 5-year strategic plan. We conducted an off-site leadership team meeting, a 2-day meeting where we went to Heritage Golf Club. So what we did there is we reviewed our achievements to date for the first 2 years. We then reset our plan for the next 5 years, and we looked at 3 different horizons: a 1-year horizon, a 3-year horizon, and a 5-year horizon. And obviously with the objective of ensuring that the business was ready for sale in 5 years' time. We then launched phase 2 of the Moving Forward program. So there was an increased focus on increasing the value of the business, increased my own focus on business development and winning longer term contracts. Most sales, and especially when you're a tradesman like I was, your business is worth a lot more if you've got the contracts. So we've seen that UXC was going to buy us for Yarra Valley Water. That was worth $3 million. Imagine if we had 5 or 6 others. So, and we managed to go out and win some really big lucrative contracts based on, just thinking that that's where the value is going to be when we sell. Why SP AusNet bought us in the end, wasn't just our Yarra Valley Water metering contract. We had another massive contract where we replaced, I think it was about 15,000 odd toilets around the whole of Melbourne, through a government-funded initiative. We had a contract replacing sewer mains for Yarra Valley Water. So we diversified the business immensely in order to win contracts, and that's what got the end result. The next point, increased focus on broadening our range of services. So, we started getting into sewer infrastructure, relining of sewers, extending the sandbox virtually. Increased our focus on improving gross profit, EBITDA margins. We continue to build business operational capability. We went from managing our monthly sales to managing our sales daily. So virtually what we did there, we were so strict to our budgets that we had TV screens around the office monitoring our sales on a daily basis. So whatever sales we did the day before, the next morning you'd see on the screen where we were against budget. So, pretty radical, but we're in a business where we could do that. A lot of businesses you can't because your sales are delayed or whatever, but we could do that, and that made a big difference to the business.
Just there, Dave, we went through the growth phase when you started this plan. The business was doing about $8 or $9 million. That particular year that you talked about, you had a fairly big jump where you probably went from about that figure there to about 11.5 million in 1 year, without really putting many people on. I don't think you put too many people on, and a lot of it was out of that focus where everybody became a lot more accountable. They knew their targets, they knew their numbers, they knew what the plan was. Is that what?
Yeah, definitely. I think by giving staff goals to work for, you definitely get more out of them. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not measuring what they do, they don't know whether they're doing good or bad. Right? But when you start showing them what they do, they start thinking, I've taken it from there to there. They can see the shift, and just naturally, that had that sort of impact. So, just creating some accountability, I suppose, was the key there. We improved our procurement, inventory management, and we put on some operation managers and some 2ICs. So, we ramped up our second and third leadership group.
Sure. What were some of the trigger points, Dave, that you felt made a big difference in, I guess, increasing the value of your business?
Oh, without doubt, the knock on the door from UXC. Prior to that, even though Sam had always says you build a business to sell it, at that stage we weren't thinking, or we weren't ready, or you know what I mean. So, you don't think it's going to happen to you. To be honest, you don't think that someone's going to want to buy your business, but when it happens, and now that I've been through the process with SP AusNet, it's really not that hard. It's but it is. You have to prepare for it, right? Yeah. So that was the biggest thing that sort of, and also another trigger point was the value of contracts. You can't underestimate that. My mate, Damien here, he's got a business, a big business that. What do you do? You'd probably do 12 mil a year or 15 mil a year, somewhere around that. But he's a builder, but they haven't got many long-term contracts, so he's only as good as his next job, and no one's going to want to buy a business that's only as good as the next job. Where, another mate of mine was a shop fitter, and he had some contracts in place, so very similar to what Damien does. He sold his business for 70 million because he had contracts in place with Katie's, Just Jeans. So that's the difference between, a lot of people, want that longevity, want to grow quickly and want to make sure they've got the stability in their investment.
When did you decide the exit was your business goal? When did that come along?
Probably. Yeah. Look, we knew that we were setting the business up for sale in 5 years. When we got the knock on the door from SP AusNet, we weren't ready to sell, right? We were at the end of the Yarra Valley Water contract, so, and I knew without that contract, the business would have been probably wouldn't have been even worth anything, to be honest, right? Because that was our flagship contract. So we were 2 years out from being ready, but I had to make a decision when SP AusNet made the offer. Do we sell now and, get a good return? It was about 7 times our EBITDA earnings, which is a good multiple, given the fact that UXC had offered us 3 times multiple only 3 years before. Or do we win Yarra Valley Water back, keep building for the 2 years and sell it for 10 million more than what they're going to pay me? Sorry, SP AusNet. So it was a tough decision, but at the end of the day, you can't knock back that sort of multiple when you've got everything hinging on really a contract win. And there was nothing to say we were going to win it because we'd been there 13 years. You know, they were, you know, I'm thinking, oh, they're probably ready for a change, you know, so. But yeah, it was the UXC offer really opened my eyes, yeah. That's when I started getting ready for it, really, yeah.
Thanks, Dave. I might just flick over to Andrew. Just when did Schultz Plumbing get on the radar, mate? You know, when?
Our business won a contract at City West Water to do similar work to what David does for Yarra Valley Water. And as part of that, I guess we looked at the market. We realised that we had a great contract that we weren't delivering very well. So what we thought we'd do is go and buy some expertise. I don't know where you got 7 times from, Dave, but I think the board saw a paper that was a bit different. But you're right. And at the end of the day, it was you know, we were willing to, as everyone said, it was a strategic purchase. A business like UXC was out there as well. We were competing with, and another business called Service Stream. There were 3 players in the market, and David was the largest player, which wasn't part of a corporate. So I guess as we were looking in the services market in water, which we decided we want to grow into, everything that you've both said is 100% right. The contract made the business valuable, and that's why we looked.
That's right. Oh, fantastic. Do you want to just explain a little bit of the due diligence process that a large corporate goes through?
Yeah.
And use Schultz as a bit of an example.
It's an extremely painful process, and it was made more painful at SPL's because there's 2 boards. So we've got a management company and a company which governs it as part of the listed entity on the ASX. It's extremely challenging environment to work within internally, but the process is it's around identifying your targets, and you'll go and you'll get a list of, I'm trying to think first up, we might have got 12 targets that we took to the board as potentials, and we'd work with the board to shortlist them, and then we'd make an approach to a number of companies. So the process Brent talked through is exactly the process. You go and you do a soft sound first, so you might go direct to the company if you're confident with the relationship. So in David's case, someone that worked for SP Ausnet had sort of met him in a business sense, and we went direct to David. A few other businesses we went through an advisor to just sound out their interest. Then the process is that our interest is confirmed as genuine. So once again, what you're saying and what Brent said is exactly right. You make sure that we want to buy, that the business owner wants to sell, and then you'll talk around indicative price. From indicative price, prior to an indicative price being submitted, that's when you've got to start getting the board involved. So, as an ASX listed company, there's board meetings, there's only one every month. So the timing, you've got to get the paper in within 2 weeks before the board meeting. So depending on the cycle of your meetings with the potential purchaser, you might have a meeting for the first of the month. Something might come up in that business, might get delayed a week. That might mean you miss the board paper cut-off. And depending on how robust the governance is in the business, as is pretty tight, there were times when that would mean you'd have a 2-month delay to a decision. So, there is some sort of hurry up, we need some information. Right, we missed a date, you've got to wait. And it's a challenging environment, but it's driven by the fact that the board members are the ones who effectively okay management's decision, and they only meet monthly. So,
how long did the due diligence went for a fair while?
I think we made our first approach probably at least 12 months before we gave you a cheque, at least. And I would say even that is quick. Particularly in the last 3 years, it was a quick deal.
I think I may have asked you this before, but for everyone else's benefit, we were sort of 2 years out from being 100% ready to sell, right? So how did you find our documentation and the results of your due diligence on Schultz?
An absolute tick in the box was the data room prepared, so a soft data room that showed that you had documents and procedures, and whilst they weren't potentially as good as you would have liked, but the fact that you had them and you're able to actually provide access to a soft data room. And a data room is it's an online portal where all of the folders of relevant information, so leases, financials, payroll information, safety performance for us, client contracts with scheduler rates blacked out. All of them are provided in an online environment, and that's really the answer to your due diligence questionnaire. And then that was a big tick for us. So yeah, it helped a lot.
Yeah. Oh, good.
What did you feel the key, other than having the data room there? What were the other key strengths of the Schultz proposal? Because I think you might have I think that soft contact might have even come 3 months earlier before.
Yeah, look, I think it did. It was probably 12 months is generous on the timeline, but I think one thing that David talked on his advisor before. He did an outstanding job, because in the first meeting we had with Dave, we were just going to go and catch up for a sandwich with him and try to do what companies like us do, and you try to catch owners a bit on the hop, and you need to be careful about big corporates and meeting them without your advisors, because we try to do it all the time. And Brent, I'm sure if you were buying a business, you try to catch up with the owner without their advisor there, and it really is the technique we try to use. I don't know how. I think the guy that set up the meeting ended up tipping his hand to Dave so quickly. The meeting was changed, and we had a catch up at his advisor's office, and it was a very professionally run meeting. Their questions around value and multiples were asked, and we sort of gave an indicative range of a multiple we'd look at, which was based on some market comparables. Dave's advisor actually had a list of similar comparable sales to what we had, and that was, that gave us a level of comfort. We were dealing with someone, one, that was sophisticated, two, that was ready to sell and committed to the process. And I think that's a really big part as well, because you can get partially down these sale processes, and I can't remember the words you used, but the owners will get cold feet and they won't want to sell. They'll care too much about being the owner of Schultz Plumbing, and the sale process is too daunting for them. So I think the fact that the structure was there from day one, whilst it probably meant we paid slightly more than we would have otherwise, I think it was a strong point. I think it gave us the confidence to pay a bit more.
Fantastic. Is there any other aspects of the deal that you want to highlight?
I mean, the advisory team that worked throughout as part of that structure was first rate. The comments you made about Deloitte before, the PwC we had on our side, and they did ask a large number of questions, and I think Sam managed to answer most of them without losing his cool, but not all, because it's just it's a really painful process. And I think if you ever do sell to a corporate that's got a board and there's timings of board meetings and you've got to wait, I think it's probably just worth acknowledging that it's just as frustrating on our side as well, because we all just want to get the deal done, especially when it's close. You've had a look, you think, right, this business can work. It's got these weaknesses and these strengths, and we like this about it. I think one thing that we appreciated was that Dave was more than happy to wait, and he accepted the process and he was committed to it, and I think that was a big strength as well. It meant that when things went wrong, we didn't panic. So, and they do go wrong. You go through emotional roller coasters the whole way through. So I think even right to the last minute, if we can talk about in specifics, Dave, we arranged a deal which had, I think, we got some board-approved ranges for earn-out, and we were keen to put a larger earn-out on it because the Aravelli contract was up, and we went with one sort of deal structure which we knew wouldn't be accepted because the earn-out was so significant. But that was just our starting point. But then when we went to try and negotiate, the powers that be internally said, nah, that's it. It's a take it or leave it. So then we had to work within those constraints. And I think it was just the fact that we'd probably been honest with each other on the way through. We were able to make the earn-out work, but it definitely ended up costing a bit.
Cost me about $1.5 million.
Having a touch more, yeah. So yeah, but it's just one of those things. But I think that you get the big carrot was there, and part of getting that was I guess being transparent on the way through and working within the corporate constraints, and that was a real positive.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thanks for that, Andrew. I'd just, Dave, just finish up this conversation and then open it up to questions. Just during your business career, Dave, especially from a start-up plumbing business with an apprentice, to selling your business for multi-million millions of dollars. What are some of the major decisions you made along the way that you want to share with the audience?
All right, so the first one was obviously getting that first big contract, and having the balls to go for it really, because it was just ridiculous that we won it, because how a government-owned entity can give a contract of that size to a bloke that was operating out of the back of the ute with no systems in place whatsoever has got me stuffed. But I owe him a lot, actually.
Actually, could I make a point there? All right.
Yeah.
See,
You're the boss.
yeah, no, mate. At the time, I remember when you were going for these tenders, you had no idea how to do a tender. But
Yeah.
So what was the first thing you went out and did?
Yeah, I don't know how I got onto him, but an ex-Navy bloke that wrote tenders for the Navy, and he was a strange unit, but he was good at writing tenders, and I ended up winning dozens of tenders. Yeah. This bloke, and he charged me $20 an hour, and he worked from home, and he really was a bit out there, wasn't he? And but he was good at what he did, and really, he was the reason that we won so many tenders, because even we always got feedback, and we still do, because of that experience, that our tenders were always the best presented, and the way you present tenders and contracts, I think, really puts you in a good position to win them, because they can make you look a lot better than what you might be, right? So I think, yeah, and I know you've always thought that was an important part of getting to where we got. I think splitting the business into two, diversifying, was huge, so always looking at the next niche market. We've always been pretty good at that, hence, water conservation, we got big into that just before the drought. And at the end of the day, that's again why we got such good dollars for the business, because SP Osnet bought it after us having our biggest year in business. And that, it was a bit of a coincidence, but if we hadn't have diversified the business, that wouldn't have happened. So that was big. Obviously, turning down the UXC offer, $3 million was a lot of money back then. It would have been easy to take it. So that was big. The business, to build the business for sale and putting together the 5-year business plan. Obviously, that was the key. Be willing to invest significant dollars to build the business, the infrastructure, and the operational capability. Dong is a bit of a tight ass. He doesn't like spending money, but I'm always saying to him, we've got businesses together. We own a gym and an ice cream shop and all these things, and we often. We don't blue, but I'm the one that likes spending. He doesn't like spending, but I think you have to if you're gonna maximise your return. Setting up the advisory board, I think it's a must. It doesn't necessarily have to be an advisory board. It can be a leadership team. That's it. But just making sure you've got the right people on it. Another thing I did, which was really significant, and when was that? That was about in 2009. I had Mel Birch go and interview all of our customers, and there was about 20 different customers that he interviewed. Most of them were at Yarra Valley Water, and they were from senior management right down to middle managers, and just asked 5 or 6 questions to them about what they thought about Schultz Plumbing, and based on the information back, we made some significant changes in the business. And I think that went a long way to us continuing to win the Yarra Valley Water contract, so I think that was important. The decision to sell, not to sell, and should we sell before we win the Yarra Valley Water contract back? That was huge. I still think now is potentially the wrong decision, selling, because now I know how the big boys operate. If we had a 1 Yarra Valley Water back and continued to grow aggressively for 2 years, the figure could have been, 50 million, easily, based on what you know, all these big companies are trying to get into the utility market, you know, whether it be electricity, gas, water, and it's a very hard market to break into. So to be able to buy a company that's, you know, turning over 50 million, mainly in the utility space, you know, it's gold. So, and they'll pay big money for it. So, in hindsight, but don't get me wrong, I'm happy I sold, but you know, it could have gone either way.
So a lot of debate. We debated that.
Yeah. That was one of the horizons. You know, do we hold on? But you know, it's done. Building long-term quality relationships with you know, Sammy, I think is important. You know, your accountant, you know, can make you or break you at the end of the day. So, making sure you got the right one. The Westpac, the bank manager, I think it's important to have that relationship. You know, I was lucky enough to have one of the best. You know, Pousey, ex-corporate banker, still, you know, good friend of mine. You know, he still comes to our meetings every now and again. And, you know, Andrew Morn and Malcolm Birch, so you have to surround yourself with the right people.
No worries, mate. So thanks a lot for that, Dave. We might just wrap it up there, but probably want to open it up to any questions. But thanks a lot, Dave, for that presentation. Mate. That was awesome.
Just on, you know, after the sale, just to let everyone know sort of how it's ended up. The first year they bought Schultz, we probably done about $1 million less profit than what we thought we would, or what we budgeted, and that was due to, you know, integration, you know, going from a family style business to a corporate. But I'm happy to say that, you know, we're into our second financial year now. We're 9 months into our financial year, and we're 400K ahead of budget, and you know, probably going to do about 3.6, I think, million in EBITDA. So the acquisition's gone really smoothly, which is important for me, for SPIsnet, but also the staff. So it's been a good story at the end of the day.
The other interesting bit to that as well is sometimes you get a bit romantic. You talked about being friends with people you sell businesses for. You know, it's not the first business that we bought, but I believed in Dave's business a lot, and when it wasn't going that well, I actually jumped in with him to prove that it was a great business. And I think it's interesting, you know, like sometimes you develop those relationships through the stress of the sale, and I think it's something we're all proud of now that it's working.
Well, that's right. Andrew's now my boss, so he took over the management of my old business. So he went from his corporate role down into an operational role. So he's now the head of asset solutions, and I'll work for Andrew in terms of growing the business. So we're actually looking at doing a couple of acquisitions in our group, or in Select Solutions as we speak, because we've got we had our 2-day offsite last week. Just happened to be at Heritage again, just a coincidence, but we're looking to grow our business from, we're doing 150 external revenue now to 450 mil external revenue in 5 years. So, it's virtually starting all over again. So.